Hello, it's been a very long time since I've done any YouTube updates, so I wanted to give you guys something to watch. I have tried filming all of the little bits that I've filmed trying to build the Fiddle yard. Let's be really honest, all of the footage was crap. So what you're going to see is the most finished version of the Fiddle yard before it goes into the new house. I wanted to show you what I've actually done and talk you through how and why I've done it. If you want to hear the most up-to-date versions of everything about the Fiddle yard and how the new layout's going and how the house move is going, you can listen to my new podcast, which is the Model Rail Replacement Podcast with my friend James from Western Signalman. We talk all about layouts. We do a lot of model railway chat, so it's a very frequent. It comes out weekly on a Monday morning, and hopefully you'll enjoy that. You can find it on my YouTube channel, James's YouTube channel, as well as Spotify and other various means of listening to podcasts. With that, on with the Fiddle yard update.
Hello, welcome back to Emperor's Path. It has been quite a while, so if you follow the podcast, you'll completely understand why it's been a while. However, if you don't follow the podcast, I'm moving house and I am currently trying to do as much hobby as I can whilst waiting to move into said house. Now, the one thing I wanted to do was build a new fiddle yard. I wanted to make one that was bigger and could accommodate more trains and also had point motors installed. If you haven't watched it already, there is a previous video on how I built my last fiddle yard, which was 8 foot by 1 foot wide. I was able to accommodate 8 different lines on that layout, and it worked for what I needed, but moving into a new house gave me the option to better the original fiddle yard idea and also make sure that I could accommodate longer trains as well. So on the previous iteration, I utilised 4 three-way points to get the most out of the length of trains, and I'm doing exactly the same here. What I've done is I've utilised those same 3-way points to try and maximise my space and lines, and here's how I've done it. So we have Fiddle Yard 1, which will be for one of the main lines, Fiddle Yard 2, that will be for the other main line, so they're treated separately. So we've got a 3-way point, which goes into this siding here. That goes down to the mirrored version of it, so there's a 3-way point with this single siding on that end. And this can accommodate, effectively, a 10-coach train, whether that's 9 coaches and a loco or a 10-car unit, however you want to look at it. Then it goes into this one as well, which is exactly the same. So at the other end, we have a 3-way point, goes into these sidings. These will be my 2 longest sidings on the entire layout. Then, on this side, it goes into a medium radius point, medium radius point, medium radius point, and those are mirrored, so they will go all the way down here. Now, I know you're sat there saying, but Sam, how can you accommodate those in that space? Well, what I've done is I've built all of these boards on 4 foot by 1 foot boards, A, to make it very portable, and B, so that I can build whilst I'm waiting to move into the new house, and then can come out, put it all up together in the new house and click it all together. So in the center of these fiddle yards, there will be a 4 foot by 1 foot board, which will have just straight tracks on it. So the reason I'm confident in that is because I've measured each individual line so that when these meet up, they will all join together and I'll be able to accommodate the lines. Ignore how these are lying at the moment, they're not sat properly. In order to have this so that you can see it all on one table, I haven't brought out the 4 foot sections with just straight track on them. I have just left those upstairs. However, this means that on this fiddle yard, I can have 10 coach, 10 coach, and then that could be a 9 coach train, and then a 6 coach train, 6 coach train, and 6 coach train. This allows me to have some of my engineering trains or some of my shorter DMUs and EMUs that can go on these lines. Now, on the other fiddle yard, this is laid out differently. We have a 3-way point where the center one goes exactly to the same opposite, so it goes straight to the 3-way point. That will allow me to accommodate 10 coach train. On this one, we have a point on one side and then 2 points on the other side. So it means that a lot of the sidings are roughly the same. What that gives me is it effectively means I'll be able to run a lot of 8 coach trains out of the other sidings, whether that's 8 and a loco or 8 coach EMUs. The reason I've done that is just to give me a bit of variation, and then that way it means that I don't feel like I'm losing out an entire siding by running a shorter engineering train or something like that. All of the points are going to be operated by these MTB MP1 point motors. So these are really, really good slow action point motors, and what I love about them is they're really small. But the main thing I've done is underneath each of the cork bits, I've dug a little cavity, and then I've got some piano wire, bent it and put it up there. I do need to use the Dremel to cut these down, but all of them work. I made a little mini jig that allowed me to test all of these in situ to make sure all of the points throw, and I'm really happy. And what I'll be able to do is all of these separate point motors that aren't attached to a three-way point will all work together. So effectively, this point will operate and the point that is down the other end will operate at the same time, meaning that the siding becomes available on both ends. A small complication with the three-way points means that effectively I have to remember when I start operating this layout that these points have to always be set back to their original stance, which means that this point needs to be thrown all the way to this side, and this point needs to be thrown all the way to this side. And in that way, I won't have a situation where I have this point set to the far and then trying to close this one. And hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. The reason I say that is because if I open this all the way over to this side, it means that technically this shouldn't be able to throw, but the point motor doesn't know that. So it will keep trying to throw it and possibly break the point. So I have to take that into consideration and always try and remember to put them back to their original state when I'm not running certain trains through. Same for all of the three-way points. Now, this is just a small update before I move in, but I wanted to give you something to actually look at and get a rough idea of what sort of size trains we'll be running. So this one will be at the back in the new property and will allow me to run roughly the same size trains all the way through it, whereas this one will be on the inside, and this will allow me to run some longer trains and then a lot of short trains. So it's sort of taking a case of trying to work out which one benefited me more. So I've gone to doing both versions of it. So this is it just set up in situ at the moment. I have tested every single point motor in place to make sure that it works. I do have a command station that operates in an analog form, so you can effectively flip the switches as you see fit. Once I've wired all of these up, I'll be having the wires going from the MP1 point motors, and on each part of the fiddle yard there will be one of these, which is a D sub unit, and effectively it's like one of the connectors that you can get on a computer. So all of the point motor wires will be hooked up to here eventually, and they'll all be numbered correctly. Then you get one of the connectors for the cables, and that will go straight to the main unit. Main unit will have it all set up. The reason I've done this is so that it means that I can build all of this wire up whilst it's here in this position, and then connect it all up, and hopefully it all works at the new property. So yeah, in short, all of these sections, there's 6 4-foot by 1-foot sections. 4 of those have been used as the ends of each fiddle yard. Building them in the 4-foot by 1-foot sections allows me to do it all in sort of have it set up at a desk without too much taking up too much space. It also means these pack away quite nicely, ready for the move. If you're interested in how I worked out the measurements for trying to make sure that all of the tracks are going to line up, I took a ruler to the board, and effectively it is a 1-foot wide piece of MDF, and whilst there are some drawings that have gone on there that I've had to ignore, effectively it means that on the 1 inch, 3 inch, 5 inch, 7 inch, 9 inch and 11 inch is where the center of each track will go. So with 6 lines, that means it's quite easy to line it up. And then by marking that down, it means that when all of the boards eventually all meet up, they should line up quite nicely. So adding in the 4-foot sections in the middle shouldn't be a problem. And it's also why these tracks don't go all the way to the end, because it means that I can just put the flexi track in and line them up as I see fit. So yeah, that's part 1. It's very brief. I did try making a video as I was doing all of this, and then realized that plans changed, how I was doing it changed. And if you've watched any of my videos before, it's a lot easier for me to talk about something after the fact rather than trying to show you through it, because you're just going to get crap footage. So if you have any questions on anything that I've used or anything you want to see in the next video when I finally get the fiddle yard built, let me know, because I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. However, for the moment, I'm really happy with how the fiddle yards are looking. And once they're in the new house, hopefully we'll be able to get some nice big long trains running.